It is September 27th, 2023 at 4:02 p.m. And I'm going to call to order the McMinnville Water and Light Commission. And I would ask Trina McManus to do a roll call
Yes, Mayor Drapkin,
here.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Gormley is excused this evening, Commissioner Christensen,
Here.
and Commissioner Tate.
Here.
Thank you. Have all commissioners had an opportunity to review the consent agenda? And does any commissioner wish to pull anything off the consent agenda?
Yes, I would like to pull off the minutes of August 15th, please.
Thank you. Would any other commissioner like to remove any other item from the consent agenda? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with item A, the minutes of the August 15th and 29th removed.
So moved.
So, second.
I have a motion from Chair Tankersley and a second from Commissioner Tate. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. And we'll now go to the minutes of the previous meeting dated August 15th and August 29th, 2023. Chair?
My concern is with the August 15th minutes. And in the minutes, there's a section, let me find it here. That and it's on page, mine don't have page 3 of 8, I guess on this. And it's where Chad Hudson introduces the people from Saunderson Architects, and the motion that's quoted says that it was going to be pending the outcome of the engineering structural review of the warehouse, which may change the construction phasing. But it's my recollection that the structural review might also change the decision to repair the existing warehouse rather than tearing it down. It just depends on how that turns out and what the cost would be. So, and I think Trina has some alternate language.
Yeah, we could just add in there, which may change the construction phasing of the warehouse or necessitate construction changes for the warehouse. We could also say necessitate a warehouse rebuild, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think construction changes are what we really have in mind, because we don't really, I think as I remember, the plan is that Saunderson presented was that they would repair half and add a new half, a second half, but the concern, they didn't really know whether it'd be more economical to build the new half than tear the old half down rather than trying to repair it.
So do you think the sentence or sentences being amended, we could read into the record with the amendment?
Yes, I would move that the minutes be adopted as written with this amendment.
And I'm going to get specific on
Well,
how.
I'm not, and so Mrs. McManus, do you have enough? Do you understand? And can you read back to us how that will read as amended?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it here. So the motion would be to accept the facility master plan as presented by Soderstrom Architects with additions, accommodations to provide gender neutral restroom facilities and pending the outcome of engineering structural review of the warehouse, which may change the construction phasing of the warehouse or construction changes for the warehouse, and direct general manager to proceed with additional engineering and architectural work to begin executing the plan as accepted by the commission.
That's the motion.
That's a motion. Okay. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Chair Tankersley and a second by Commissioner Christensen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
And Mayor, just for a second, on the other two items, renewal of the LIHEAP agreement and the water agreement as well. I just wanted to say, I think that's really a good thing that we're doing that. And it's a good thing that YCAP has put it together. And I'm quite pleased that we're helping people who can't afford their bills pay their bills.
Excellent. Any opposed?
Sorry.
Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously.
And then were there other minutes, was there another meeting we have to approve the minutes to?
Both
29?
the item A had both sets of minutes in it, and we pulled the item as a whole, and so then we just amended the item as a whole and approved it.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Accounts payable and purchasing reports. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review this, and does anyone have any questions? No, no questions. Thank you. Next we'll hear a forest report from Brent Keller, our senior forester. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sir.
Well, it's out there a couple of times this week, to the watershed, the 303 road sale. We'll finish up, pretty certainly on Friday. They're doing the final piling, the final few loads. So as far as the logging part of it, it'll be completely done. Friday, there'll be a road, we're gonna decommission that 303 road that's been there for decades, but we're not gonna need it again for 70 years. There's several pipes in it. So it'll be good to rip that road up, pull the pipes, open up the streams that drain down to Haskins and just put that road to bed rather than trying to maintain it. But we don't really need it for access at all. So that's a project. There'll be some other rocking to do, but the 303 road will basically be all buttoned up this week. 187 road. And I should mention on the 303 road for several months, and this became more glaring as the more volume and value came in. The original estimated final volume and final value, those original estimates from the winter that were in the prospectus for this sale were not accurately shown in my letters. So it was advertised correctly. The original estimate was correct, but I was mistakenly using one of last year's sales numbers. And so in the last few months here, it's like we were getting, 80, we're going to be like 80% over the estimate. What's going on? So I went back and looked. The numbers as they're reported here now are the original numbers from the crews and original values and stuff. So we're still going to be a little over, but it's a little more in line with what makes sense, because that was starting to, I thought, oh, well, we're a little over, but as man, we're not even close to being done with the sale and we're 100% over. And so went back and looked, and I just had mistakenly been using one of last year's sale numbers. So we're going to come out about 10-15% over in terms of volume and value. But that's a little more in line with what we expect from our crews and value estimates. 187 road sale will be completely cut this week, and they're hoping to start a bunch of shipping this week, but the roads are not ideal for hauling logs in this weather. So they're going to have 5-10 trucks every day out there. So we'll be looking at 15-20 loads a day coming off there starting next week. So should have most of that sale knocked out here in the next 3 weeks. And as far as project work, there's the decommissioning of that 303 road, and then the rocking and some other road work is the bulk of what's underway for the sale projects. Fire season, at the time of this letter, we were already at level 1. I got a text today that they're real close to just ending fire season altogether. I think they're maybe waiting to see if like last year, we were in 80-degree weather through October. So they probably want to see if we're actually do end up in a cool, moist trend here. And they may pull that next week or something, but we have all our fire equipment out there anyways. And we're definitely out of the woods as far as extreme fire danger. So we'll take it. But for now, we're
That's good.
for now, we're at a level 1. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
a couple, Brent. One on the 303 road, we're putting that road to bed, the whole road.
Mhm.
Are we planning it to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
we'll just plan right through it.
Okay, great. And the second one is 15% normal fall down on a cruise? Is that,
It's within that 10, I think we're gonna be 10, 15. We'll cut out over that.
yeah,
I think a lot of what happened there is we had a lot of blowdown that happened after and during and after the cruise there. There was that storm right after Christmas. And so that sail got a little bigger.
so the blowdown is on adjacent ground.
Mhm.
It was part of the sale.
Yeah, so that got a little bigger there, so.
So that was something about salvage logging, is that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we weren't really sure. There was some operational gray areas there, like, can we cut this or not? That were I kind of hedged towards not wanting to over report what we were gonna be able to get out of there, so that if we were able to get them, then we'd come out over, but I'd rather do that than
Okay. Oh, so it was your question whether the loggers could get to it, not their question whether the sale included it.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And additional questions?
Yeah, Brent, I might just have a question. So our normal operating season ends September 30th, right?
Mhm.
So we're extending beyond our normal operating season?
Yeah, which we have done. I mean, the contract is entirely done at the end of December.
Right.
You know, our guideline for it's like the May through September operating season. I went back and looked, we particularly gone past that with when we did the polling or
Right.
these 2-year contracts where it was kind of a little more
But under the contract, they have to seek permission to extend out beyond September 30th. Normally, we're done by September 30th.
Right,
or
right.
out. Yeah.
right.
So you've okayed that, you've talked.
Well, and we're just looking at the weather, I think we'll be okay, but, you know, if we was talking to John about this, we got in a situation where it was just. We're into the rainy season and
Right.
we'd have to look at squaring things up and coming back and extending things and. You know, and even looking at additional costs, there'd be additional management. If you had the extreme case pull out and come back next year, well, now you're. In terms of management costs for next year's budget, you'd have to look at them. Being on the hook for and those kinds of things. I think we'll be okay, but in the back of my mind. That might be something that we'd have to address, but I think, so with the understanding that we're not gonna haul in the, driving like this kind of weather and.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we get a little bit of break in the weather for the next month and we should be okay.
We were trying to follow that and sort of in our administration of it. It's like, okay, we're getting to the end of the operating season. And so I don't know, we would appreciate if you just see that in your report that we're sort of affirmatively being told, okay, we're going beyond.
Sure,
So we know that it's not, something we should be concerned about.
right. And I've talked to him several times this week. We're gonna have to get. We can't drift along like we did with the 303 road.
Yeah.
All summer. We're gonna have to get a bunch of trucks out there and get with it, or you're clearly gonna be outside the contract then in terms of how the watershed is treated and so on.
Thanks.
So you'll keep Brent apprised of what's, you'll keep Sam apprised of what's going on there.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
you bet.
Thank you. Additional questions? All right,
Okay.
thank you very much.
See you later.
Okay. So it is 4:16 PM on September 27th, 2023. We're scheduled to conduct 3 public hearings. The first is a continuation, first opened on July 13th regarding McMinnville electric rates and charges. The second hearing regards allocations of rate period high water mark and change in distribution charge for industrial contract customers. And the third hearing regards Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act standards, number 20, demand response, and number 21, electric vehicle charging programs. There will be 3 hearings today. Each hearing will be opened and either closed with a decision or continued to a later date. As mayor and presiding officer, and will conduct the hearings, impose reasonable time limits on participants, and receive documents and reports into the hearing record. At today's hearings, the commission expects to begin each with a staff report. During the staff report, I may recognize other members of the commission to ask questions of staff. After the staff report, interested parties will be invited to ask questions. Before starting your stating your question, please state your name and address for the record. Because we are operating in a hybrid digital format on Zoom, I will provide an overview of some important procedural items. If you are watching on YouTube, you will need to go to the Zoom meeting provided in the published notices and on our McMinnville Water and Light website in order to join the meeting. Anyone joining the Zoom meeting is automatically set to be on mute and to have their video display hidden. At the appropriate times during the meeting, I will ask those on Zoom whether they'd like to speak. When this occurs, please select the raise hand feature option. And when you've selected raise hand, staff person managing the meeting will know that you have requested to ask a question. I'll give adequate time at these points during the meeting for questions of staff. If you are having difficulty using the raise your hand feature, you may also use the chat feature to type that you would like to speak. The chat feature will be monitored during the meeting. If using the chat feature, please note your name and address and confirm you wish to ask a question of staff. If you are calling via phone and do not have access to the Zoom meeting video and toolbar, please wait until I ask if there is anyone on the phone who would like to ask a question. I will make sure that everyone who wants to participate in the public hearing has the opportunity to do so. The commission may have questions for the interested parties who speak during the meeting. Staff will be offered an opportunity for final comment. Finally, the commission will deliberate and consider the proposed resolution and attached rate schedules. The first hearing, a continuation from July 13th, will be on electric rate charges, and the meeting is now open. Utility rate analyst, Ms. Trina McManus, will you please begin the staff presentation?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Trina McManus, and I'm the utility rate analyst for McMinnville Water and Light. I've worked for the utility for the last 13 years and have focused on rates and cost of service for about 2.5 years now. I've been working with the consultant Utility Financial Solutions on the latest revisions to the cost of service model for the last 8 months or so. We are here this afternoon to continue a public hearing on changes to electric rates and charges. This hearing was first opened on July 13th, 2023, where McMinnville Water and Light consultant Mark Beauchamp of Utility Financial Solutions presented the results of the latest electric cost of service analysis. Mr. Beauchamp is the president of UFS and has over 30 years of experience in the utility environment. He's completed cost of service and rate studies for more than 200 municipal systems around the United States and has served as an expert witness in rate cases. Mark is recognized as a national expert in his field and often speaks at conferences and presents to industry organizations. Mr. Beauchamp presented a 2-year rate track with a 2.75% overall increase in electric rates each of the 2 years. Tonight, we are asking the commission to consider the adjustments for year 1 only. There were a couple of minor adjustments made to the UFS presentation from the July meeting that I would like to point out. In July, the commission had some discussion surrounding minimum cash levels. On slide 5 of the UFS presentation, it's titled Minimum Cash Reserve. Staff reviewed the items that made up the minimum cash reserve with the consultant. After some discussion with UFS, General Manager John Dietz, and Power Resource Manager Jamie Phillips, 2 areas were amended in minimum cash. Purchase power expense was one, and additional risk due to contract customers was the other. The minimum cash for purchase power expense, which is essentially our BPA costs, previously covered about 10% of those annual expenses at approximately $2.9 million. After some staff discussion, this amount was raised to 20% of annual purchase power expenses, which brought that level up to just under $5.9 million. Staff felt that the increase would adequately cover risk associated with power supply costs, potential costs associated with BPA's financial policies, and would address the lag between incurring the expenses and collecting the revenues from the customers. The other section was additional risk due to contract customers, and that was increased from about $5.1 million to approximately $6.6 million, which equates to approximately 4 months of power costs from McMinnville Water and Lights to contract customers. For 2024, total minimum cash was raised from about $19.4 million, which you saw in July, and now you see in tonight's packet, it's just under $23.8 million. Staff will review the minimum cash levels again in the next cost of service study in 2025. And we're also working on a cash reserve policy for the commission to consider in the coming months that will provide further guidance on cash reserves moving forward. Any questions on that section before I move on to the other change from July? Should I keep going?
No questions.
Okay. So the other adjustment from July was to the lighting section. So that was on slides 16 and 17 of the UFS presentation that deals with both municipal and rental lighting. Since we started installing LED lights a number of years ago, we've had separate rates for HPS and LED lights. Over the years, we've installed more LED lights. The cost for the LED fixtures have come down, and we no longer install new HPS fixtures in the field. The only exception to that is the decorative lights that we have down on 3rd Street. We don't yet have an LED option for those, but everything else is LED going in new construction. So we felt at this time it makes sense to meld the two rates together and have one rate for both LED and HPS fixtures. So it's staff's opinion, based on familiarity with McMinnville Water and Lights Electric Department financial status, revenue requirements, and review of the UFS cost of service study, that the proposed 2.75% overall rate adjustments are based on costs and electric rates necessary to provide adequate receipts for maintenance and operation of the system, maintenance of adequate reserves for contingencies, and contemplated additions, improvements, and extensions to the system. I'd also like to offer the information from the commission packet, which is pages 40 to 85, to be admitted as part of the hearing record. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Any quick chair?
Excuse me, your last item, the municipal lighting rate design, I don't quite understand what. So that means we're charging everything as if it were an LED? What does it mean exactly?
No, it means that in the cost of service, we consider the cost of both the HPS costs and the LED costs together and developed one rate. So like the fixture costs, the amount of staff time, you know, the frequency at which you visit a light is different with an HPS versus an LED. So we looked at them separately and then we melded those two together so that no matter if you have an HPS or an LED of a certain wattage, it comes out as one rate now instead of two separate ones.
Just as a layperson, it seems to me like it's going to be cheaper for LED because of the power costs, but maybe the fixture is more expensive. Is that
the fixture cost has been the driver, and historically it has been more expensive. So there was a number of our wattages that were already about the same. I mean, they were just like pennies different, and so they have been the same. And so that wouldn't be a change. There's a couple of them where the fixture for the LED is still more expensive than the HPS. So there were times where it would come out to where it would be more expensive on the LED side.
So this is fair to either the city or the private owner. Nobody is subsidizing anybody else tremendously.
No. No, they were very similar. I think there was one that was a couple of dollars different, but those are offset by the energy charges and also the frequency at which staff will have to visit. And eventually they will all have an LED. So people that currently have an HPS fixture, as soon as those fail, we're going to be replacing those. And I believe, John, we're starting to make a more aggressive approach to replacing those at a quicker rate. So that hopefully, you know, in the next few years, we'll have LED fixtures.
Yeah, a couple things. So really, the only time we actually do anything with an HPS is if we'll change an eye or a bulb. If there's anything else wrong with the fixture, we replace the whole fixture and eliminate that. The other thing we were getting that helped offset some of those LED rates on the fixtures was we're also getting a rebate from EPA on those. And I think that, does that end or are we still going to get those rebates going forward? So we should hopefully continue to get rebates on the replacement of the HBS with the LEDs through our conservation program.
Thank you. I have another question, but somebody else
Please,
to follow.
go for it.
So on the minimum cash reserve with the projected rate track, I just want to be sure that we are not committing to this 2.75% increase over the whole 5 years on the rate track.
No, just this.
That's correct. The only thing you're committing to tonight is just the year one, the projected for 2024. Everything beyond that is just giving you forecasts and what the financials could look like if you were to implement that throughout the 5 years. But we will continue to do a 2-year cost to service analysis as we get the new BPA rates. And each year we will come to the commission with an updated recommendation.
And we're not even committing to the 2.75 in 2025, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yep. Just, okay.
Other commissioners have questions?
I do not.
Do others in the audience have questions like to ask staff? If so, please join us at the table so that we can record your question and those in the
Here.
internet world can. No, okay. Not hearing any additional questions. Just find my place here, so I go in order. Oh, and do we have anybody on the phone?
We do not.
And is there anybody on Zoom?
No.
Okay, thank you. Would staff like to offer any final comments?
Nope.
Okay. We have the resolution. Yeah. that's what I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
and you as presiding officer, you did accept the meeting record or the minutes, the records that were offered, you accepted.
Yes, I
those.
accepted pages 40 to 85 of the current packet into the meeting record, and then I'm just looking for the staff recommendation on the motion here is what I'm looking for in my packet so that I can try to next step us or. Okay, so I would entertain a motion that the commission adopt by resolution an electric rate adjustment per the attached rate set schedules consistent with the 2.75% overall rate design to be effective October 1st, 2023. I so move.
Right, so what I would suggest.
Yes.
So you're closing the hearing record.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'd like to close the record, sorry.
Okay, and then I'll go ahead, if you're ready, if you have any deliberation, if you want to discuss anything at this point, that'd be if not, then I can read the resolution by title. And if you want to
And then
go
we'll-
proceed. Yes, so the resolution is number 2023-15, a resolution adopting electric rates, charges, and fees by the city of McMinnville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission. That's 2023-15.
Sam, it's actually 16.
The 16? Oh, my bad. Thank you.
Yep.
It's 2023-16. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I now entertain a motion to approve said
I
resolution.
move.
I have a motion from Commissioner Christensen,
second,
and a second from Commissioner Tate, and will the clerk please poll the commission?
Yes, Mayor Drapkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate.
aye.
Thank you, and the resolution is approved unanimously. We'll now go into our second public hearing. This public hearing is regarding proposed adjustments. It is open, I'll now open the next public hearing on industrial contract customer rates and charges. And I would ask Power Resource Manager Jamie Phillips to begin the hearing with a staff presentation. Thank you. You.
Right. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the proposed adjustments to rate period high water marks and distribution charges for McMinnville Water and Lights to industrial customers. Cascade Steel and Air Gas receive power service via contracts that pass through BPA's power and transmission costs using the same billing determinants and rate allocations that McMinnville Water and Light sees as a BPA customer. Every 2 years, BPA conducts a rate case. And as part of that process, it adjusts the forecasted output of the federal Columbia River power system, the generation at the dams and the nuclear plant for the next 2-year period. That is used to set BPA customers' rate period high water marks, which represents the maximum planned amount of the tier 1 power that a customer is eligible to receive in a fiscal year. For fiscal years 2024 and 2025, BPA is forecasting an increase in the output of the federal system. Therefore, customers' rate period high water marks are increasing over the current rate period. Staff is proposing to adjust the rate period high water mark amounts allocated to Cascade Steel and Air Gas for BPA fiscal years 2024 and 2025 in an amount proportional to the change in McMinnville's rate period high water mark. For Cascade Steel, that increase, their rate period high water mark increases from 36.309 average megawatts to 38.063 average megawatts. Air Gas rate period high water mark increases from 4.295 average megawatts to 4.503 average megawatts. Also proposed are adjustments to the monthly distribution charge for both Cascade Steel and Air Gas. This charge serves to recover costs related to McMinnville Water and Lights, capital investments, depreciation, and O&M expenses. This distribution charge has been reviewed and the adjustments recommended by Utility Financial Solutions as part of our recent electric cost of service analysis. For Cascade Steel, the monthly charge will go from $62,070 to $64,550. And for Air Gas, the monthly charge will go from $7,135 to $7,420. Also proposing to eliminate the volumetric charge component of Air Gas's distribution charge. It is $0.00098 per kilowatt hour. By removing that, we will simplify the charge and also better align with cost of service. So those costs are then recovered in that flat rate. So staff is open to questions or discussion at this point. Do you have any?
Wonderful, thank you. Any commissioners have questions for staff at this point?
Let somebody else go first this time.
Commissioner Tate?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, I'm guessing that these adjustments, these every 2-year adjustments are all part of a larger contract that we have with both of these customers, and they're expecting to see these 2-year reviews and adjustments. Is there any, do they collaborate at all, or are they part of this conversation as you're making these calculations, or do we just present this to them?
I have shared the information with them. And they don't have any feedback. They chose to pass on appearing this evening, so they're good with the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Other commissioner questions? Chair
Yes,
Tankersley?
real quickly, please. The first one is about air gas. So what did the volumetric charge generate?
In dollars.
Yes.
It varies depending on their energy consumption, but it ranged from $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And our cost service analysis showed that we're over collecting in our distribution charge. So by removing that
So
component
They're getting a discount. Right,
from current.
substantial,
True.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay, and where did that come from? Why are they paying that and Cascade Steel is not? I don't know, I was here. about
Yeah.
that.
So that was originally included in contract negotiations in 2012, I believe, 11. To capture maybe some additional risk posed by that customer for not being able to provide a parental guarantee. So it was, and then subsequently, we added a risk adder to their bill, which now captures that. So this, I think, was and I'm not completely familiar with the reasons why. It's a long time ago and I wasn't, I was on the periphery there, but I believe it was to capture some additional risk associated with that customer after reviewing it with the consultant and looking at the actual cost of service for the things that the distribution charge is designed to recover. We're comfortable that we can eliminate that at this point with 5 years left in the contract.
So the risk went away?
Well, we're also collecting 2% on their bill for payment risk.
Okay, so that's,
Now, it was, so at the time, if I recall correctly, we couldn't come to an agreement with Airgas on a contract. And so we had to adopt an industrial tariff, which they were served at for a few months until we could sort out
right.
contract terms.
Mhm.
And so that may be what kind of led to that additional charge.
And you're confident based on the cost of service study that this 1,000 or 2,000 a month discount from what they've been, maybe it's not quite that much, but this substantial discount from what they've been paying, the result is that they pay the cost to us of serving and then we pass through the liability.
Correct.
And that includes a risk premium, you said,
Yes,
because we still have a parental guarantee.
Yes.
Right?
that's right.
What's the risk premium? 2%?
2%,
2% of the, is it 2% of the
their total bill.
total bill?
Mhm. Every month,
So that's on top of
the distribution charge.
the distribution charge. And so is it? So how does that work? Because it would, the tariff doesn't, the rate doesn't seem to say that much. Was the,
But it's in the contract.
The distribution charge,
yeah,
The risk premium.
the risk premium is a separate,
It's like on
separate
their
from
bill.
it's separate, it's a separate line item on their
It's a
bill.
contractual item.
And it is listed separately in their agreement. So it's not
but
affected by
shouldn't
this.
should our rate say that?
Well, I think, if I understand right, what you're saying, Ms. Phillips, is that what changes when we have the ability to change is the distribution charge.
Yes,
And the 2% is a contractual matter based on whatever that is set at. So when we set the distribution rate at hearing and contractually on top of that, by contract, we get an additional 2%
Yeah,
under the contract.
yeah, the 2% doesn't change it's not opened, that's a contract term,
Sure.
not this schedule.
It's a set.
Yeah.
Okay, based on the distribution.
But we.
Yeah.
But we charge that from the beginning, the 2%.
Yes.
It-
Why is that now a substitute for the fraction of a cent per kilowatt hour?
So I am not certain of the reasons behind the point or the
But I think
98 mils
the cost of service shows that we were over collecting
on the distribution
distribution
charge.
charge.
So we're just adjusting that and collecting it in a flat amount every month and eliminating the volumetric component.
But they don't balance because the flat rate was about an increase of
Yeah.
about $300 a
We were
month.
over.
And the 0.000098 is a loss of about 2,000 a month.
We
So their
were
overall bill will be going down.
over
So we were over.
based on cost of service.
And what's the, I mean. We have to get into the details of the cost of service calculation. To compare this to Cascade Steels, you know, like what's the percentage? Comparison between the two of them as to the change in the distribution charge.
4%.
They're both 4%. So essentially, we're giving away the $2,000 a month or whatever it is, because the cost of service would have gone up about the same for both of them. Because of our, right,
I'm
Well,
not sure. I
cost of
follow.
service for Cascade went up by $2,000 a month. From 62 to 64.
Their cost of service is actually higher. We're only increasing it by 4%. It's an incremental increase.
And we were over collecting, so in reality, we should have been collecting roughly $2,000 less from Intergas.
but I didn't understand when you said. We're only increasing it 4%. It's not. It's the cost of service went up more. Did I hear that correctly?
So the cost of service trips with an amount above 4%. We're adjusting it by 4%, roughly the rate of inflation to account for the increase in those costs. The methodology for the distribution charge accelerates depreciation on plant assigned to those customers to be collected within the contract term through 2028. And so it functions to recover any expenditure, any capital expenditure, any depreciation, O&M within the contract term. We've chosen to increase it by 4% to not.
So I didn't understand correctly that this charge reflects the cost of service, because it's actually, it's too low for the cost of service, right?
True, yes, that rate would be something quite a bit higher. I mean, like,
So if you.
which is how we've always done it for context. So that is what we've always.
You also always collected this $2,000 a month volumetric charge.
Yes, from Airgas.
And they pay a lot less for their power than another commercial customer, right?
On average, correct. Mhm. True.
I'm having trouble understanding
But they-
why we would reduce their bill by 2,000 a month when it doesn't cover, we don't cover our cost of service. And they pay a substantially lower charge than other.
For
businesses.
air gas, we do.
We do
What I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I understand is we've been overcharging one company and undercharging another company.
Well, so you're talking about Cascade Steel, we're not,
Cascade
Charges.
Steel were undercharging and Airgas were overcharging. That's my.
so the air gas cost of service is the 7, whatever this number is.
Times,
Is it lower than that?
times 12 approximately.
The 7420.
Mhm.
But it's not, so that is the cost of service.
Within maybe a 1% margin.
Yeah, I misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about air gas when you said that we don't charge cost of service.
We'll collect. Yeah, we will, with the adjustment, we will collect cost of service. With Cascade, we won't.
Okay.
But we limited the increase to 4% with Cascade to align with Airgas and to minimize the rate shock.
So is that in our contract that we would,
This is a commission decision.
Have
So
we
you
always
are-
charged under cost of service on Cascade?
Yes.
so the Cascade contract says they will pay cost of service, or we just said it, right?
No,
That's
it
what-
just says
we
that
said it, that's right.
the distribution charge is set by the commission.
Right, okay, and we've traditionally set it at cost of service.
No, it sounds like below.
No, it's been a recommendation, and a methodology used by our consultant UFS and a recommendation to cap that at some level each time, usually around inflation to, soften the,
Okay,
Impact.
so. But you're sure that the 74.20 a month covers the cost of service to air
air
gas?
gas.
So Tom, you don't have any recollection of previous conversations around the Cascade Steel
No,
cost of service?
I don't. I recall that the contract negotiations were fairly complicated. But I don't, and I guess I have a vague recollection of us talking about not wanting to, have a huge jump in cost of service. I think I have that.
Well, have we had a significant change in cost of service? Like, is it something that's happened recently, or has it always been this way as far as you know, Jamie?
So recent adjustments were made for, obviously inflation is a bit higher than 2 years ago. But nothing, I mean, our capital investments are in line with what they've always, kind of projected to be. O&M is the big impact is inflation. So as far as total cost of service allocated to Cascade Steel and Airgas, the methodology is the same. The change is related to material costs and inflation in our O&M expenses.
And
What would the number be if we weren't aligning it with air gas? What's the actual percent that need to go up?
It's, I don't have the percentage calculated in my head, but it's a little over $1 million a year. Whereas the 64,550 will collect about 745,000, I believe.
So it's about 20,000 a month more.
And where are the monies coming from that are subsidizing the $1 million a year? Other ratepayers or?
So the charge is calculated on a methodology based on our O&M and, depreciation of those assets. So, this revenue has been billed, I mean, it's not accounted for specifically, it's,
Built into the overall system.
yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, and you have to remember Cascade,
So some of these projects haven't happened, a lot of the deferred investments and. Sorry, John,
yeah, because basically, anything we do, we have to wait for them to give us an outage. And we're not getting those outages on a regular basis, so those items are not happening. The other thing that's going on, that goes on at Cascade is. They pay for the, and this goes back to Tom's, I think, earlier question is, they pay for the major pieces of equipment. So if we have a transformer fail, for example, that's not on our ratepayers, that's actually on Cascade. They have to replace that at their expense.
And do we own it?
We own it, they're responsible for the replacement.
And what about maintenance?
We do the maintenance, and that's part of the distribution charge.
So help me understand, if they did a cost of service analysis based on actual cost, why does it matter that we haven't done some things we thought we had to do?
Because I don't think that necessarily those are actual costs or depreciated costs, so they're estimates.
But don't you only do depreciation after you spent the money?
Well, yeah, we spent the money decades ago.
Yeah, so it's a rate of return on those.
Right,
assets.
but whether they have an outage now has nothing to do with that asset test.
Well, right, but those assets were, at a much lower rate than we would replace them today at. In order to maintain them at.
But that makes the number lower, right?
I think it would make it higher, wouldn't it?
This would be a higher cost.
There'd be a higher cost. So that depreciation number would go up even faster. Because today, if we did it today, it's X percentage higher, so if you depreciate it over a certain period, it's gonna be a bigger number.
No, but John, I mean, them us not doing it. It's a lower cost of service rather than higher.
Right. But we're trying to estimate, and the contract's not simple because there's also there's a portion in there where we're supposed to give them a number every year on what the capital costs are going to be going forward every year and a schedule.
Mhm.
And then that's supposed to be, okay, this is what we think we need to maintain or replace. And then that doesn't,
And they build that into their budget.
They're
the
supposed to build-
overall cost.
they're supposed to build that in, but then a lot of times those are getting delayed. Because,
It's not necessary to replace them.
well, no, it's that they don't want to do it.
Spend money.
They don't want to
Wait.
spend the money.
Are we, what's getting delayed? The schedule or?
Schedule. Replacement of equipment.
So they determine what's going to be replaced and when.
Well, we determine that, and then we try to get them to, they need to pay for that. Based on what we think needs to be replaced and when. But we have to negotiate that with them.
So if the replacement of equipment is a part of the contract that they have to pay for,
Mhm.
are you saying that's connected to our cost, covering our cost of service charges? Because it seems like that's in addition, like it seems like that should be in addition, but is it a calculation where what they spend on assets or things is connected to the cost of service somehow?
It was tied in with the depreciation.
Okay.
And then the
Didn't,
maintenance-
didn't Mark Bushland say that in his cost of service model, he does not count depreciation on customer supplied assets? Because I think I had a question about that because we're gonna have to replace it, but I think he said he doesn't count that in his cost
Well,
of service.
But remember, we have two pieces here. That's the distribution system.
Yeah.
We're talking the industrials over here. Different contract, different,
No, I understand the
Right.
rules are, but he's not gonna have a different cost of service analysis he does for us, is he?
So the methodology for the distribution charge includes depreciation on the allocated asset plant assets for these customers.
Okay, even the ones that they contribute, because they were our assets to start with. Right. So,
They become our assets.
right, but I mean, we bought them
Yeah, originally,
That's right.
correct. We
Yeah.
bought them. And this is going back before the
before
contract.
the contract, we
Right.
bought them, but so. So we're treating. For a cost of service analysis, we're treating the Cascade Steel, the assets Cascade Steel bought differently than the assets that developer Smith bought.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I agree, we should not just, jab into something that you've already talked, but for next year or the next time we look at this, I would like to have Mark Beauchamp talk to us again about how he does this. And maybe you could warn Cascade Steel that, you told us that they're only paying 3/4 of their cost of service. And we're concerned about it. So I'm concerned.
And not allowing updates to occur, it sounds
So to
like,
me, that,
to the system, if I understood
huge.
correctly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
That's their system. So remember, that's what serves just them.
but if they're deferring it and it's built into the overall budget on their side, right? So they have the distribution cost plus this potential replacement. I guess my thought would be, what is the risk to the
Yeah.
system and to the supply? I mean, knowing what the supply chain and all of that is, I just want to
If the risk is to them,
correct.
Right.
But it has an inherent risk to us, because if they go down and they,
And we don't have the,
they're separate. So that's the whole reason
For the contract.
for the contracts is it's a direct pass through so that it's a separate. If something, let's say they went away, it doesn't impact the
the
distribution system.
overall system.
Yeah, and they get a substantial discount on what power would cost.
Right.
Yeah.
That because they're taking on the risk of all the
I see.
equipment and all that, where that's built into the distribution
So
system.
John, if we maintain the equipment. And we would normally have to replace it. And we don't our maintenance costs go up?
They would, yes.
I mean, if this is going on,
We're not, so what we've done is we've given them a schedule. We're not at the point where we're beyond what we do. We're saying you need to look at replacing, like, for example, we're looking at transformers right now. Transformers are 45 years old. We would go and say, hey, this needs to be replaced in the next 5 years. So we're telling them this needs to be replaced. You need to put this into your capital plan. And the other problem that we now face is that deliveries for power transformers are now 5 years out. So now it's kind of this catch-22 for them.
John, didn't you say though that there was scheduled replacements that have not been done because they haven't wanted to shut down?
Yeah, those are not transformers, they're equipment that's a lot less expensive. But there is that, Tom's right, we are starting to see things like switches, for example, where we might have to go out and do more maintenance on it. It's not a lot yet, but if we get into the transformer situation, then it's going to be a lot different.
So is there anything, I mean, I guess part of that looking at the contract would be to see, like, I mean, I'm sure you know, like, is there any contingencies in there for them not being in compliance with taking care of some of those things? And the other, and I just wanted to make add a quick question. If the plant were shut down completely, there's other costs to us or other losses to us because they're not using electric and they're not using water, right?
Yeah, so we're talking electric here.
I know, but whether
is
it's
different.
water or electric,
This
we're
is-
losing revenue.
This is the electric rate hearing. So water, we have had conversations about, water's a completely different contract. So- That's, we need, yes,
but I think Commissioner Tate's point is the reverberations, that there would be a lot of reverberations.
on the water side.
I think
I
I think maybe the question is, well, I don't know if I hear a statement that there would be other impacts beyond the electric. I don't know that for the sake of the hearing, we need to dive into the complexities of those because there would be so many of them, including them being our largest private employer in the city.
And what it would have. the
I was
impact-
simply trying to follow up on the point that if they were shut down because they deferred replacement on parts, it has a larger impact than just what we're talking about today.
Than
at the
just
electric
the-
hearing.
Than just the electric system. That would be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does the contract say about deferred maintenance and the allowances that they have in there to continue deferring maintenance?
I think that's a bigger topic than probably we want to get into tonight, and I would want to go back and review that with John. I don't think we anticipated delving into the contract this evening.
How long is the current contract for?
It ends at the end of this.
It's coterminous with the BPA contract. So it ends with the BPA contract.
September
At 28,
Yes.
2023,
September 30th, 2028.
2028. I
Yes.
was like, wait, we're
And that-
almost there. How are
Friday.
we not talking about other things here? Okay, got it. 28. Okay,
5 years.
And,
okay. So time for us to peel that onion.
and
Okay.
the $250,000 roughly shortfall in the customer charge is a small percentage of their power bill, right?
Yes.
And I know I think as I remember, it's a trade secret. We're not gonna talk about exactly what that was, but. Okay, well, again, I'm willing to go forward with this year, but I really think that we could be looking at the contract for what John talked about the deferred maintenance and make sure they pay us for what we have to do. And also the question as to why they would be 25% low on our cost of service calculation, where their key is now at cost of service, and actually, and then have Mark Beauchamp make sure that we understand, how he does these numbers and how the deferred maintenance comes in and all that stuff. I'd like to hear more about it. This is important to me.
Certainly.
And how does this interplay, and pardon me that I'm still learning on this, but how does this interact with our tier 1, tier 2 rates?
So McMinnville, as a BPA customer, has a tier 1 allocation from BPA. Per the agreements with Cascade Steel and Airgas, they're allocated a share of that tier 1 based on a historic calculation every 2 years when it's updated. And when that is sufficient to meet their load, wonderful. When it's not, there are other mechanisms in place to serve their load. If the system as a whole does not exceed its rate period high water mark, its tier 1 allocation, there's allowance for sharing, and that's in the exhibit. Sharing that excess tier 1 from among the 3 groups. If the system is over, if McMinnville as a whole is over its tier 1 and into tier 2, then that tier 2 purchase gets assigned to the either the distribution customers if they're requiring it, or Cascade or Airgas. Our first tier 2 resource would be the Riverbend generation plant, and then beyond that, it's a BPA product that we would purchase on behalf of the customer and pass through the costs fully to the party requiring that power.
Okay, and then does this deferred maintenance also relate to the efficiency of how they're using our product? I mean, it is our 45-year-old transformers
No.
as efficient as current transformers, or it was?
It really, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It depends on what the load is and the size of the transformer. And so, if it is a little bit different, it's very small. So it's not, it's not a huge number. But they're paying those costs too. because they're paying for the losses in those transformers.
And is their power use generally going up or staying level?
Pretty flat.
Pretty
It's
flat.
projected to stay that way.
And then there's one other cost that we haven't talked about that's going up too. That's the pilot.
Oh, the payment and tax will increase 6%.
No, but it's a cost that they're gonna bear. Another goes from 4.5 to 6.
Yeah,
Correct, in September, or in September.
But they know that. and
Yes,
they've known that.
they know
Yeah,
that.
that's
So I mean,
been,
that's a reason not to bring this up to market for cost of service.
That would be the commission's
This year.
decision. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's a reason, but I would like to look at this next year
Yes.
and warn them that we.
Okay.
So could I clarify then, because I believe this rate hearing was to approve this for the next 2 years, 24 and 25, is that right?
That's, the rate period high water mark is what it is. So we can, but the distribution charge is, that's completely up to the commission's discretion and decision, so,
We could make that a 1 year.
yes.
I would be more comfortable with 1 year, considering the discussions that we've had tonight. And I'm sorry, just one more clarification. I can't remember what the answer was about this amount that we're not getting from Cascade. How is that being absorbed by the rest of the water budget?
Commissioner Tate, if I may, and this will be, make sure I understand as well, is that that's worked into the overall calculation, so it's not being offset by one particular other revenue stream for electric. It's all of the other electric combined supports that offset.
Including costs to other customers then is one component, or no?
That's what I understand. Is that accurate?
It's shouldn't impact the distribution customers. These costs are kind of siloed in the calculations.
I mean, if we're not covering our cost of service, but we're still providing under this consultant's methodology, we're still providing $1 million worth of service, or it costs us $1 million to provide that service. We're only getting $750. I mean, it's a very, very small percentage of our overall electric budget, I know, but I think it theoretically does impact other ratepayers. I mean, like,
It could be tied into the maintenance costs.
I mean, it's just, I mean, I guess if rates are based on cost of service, then maybe they are siloed, like you said, but I mean, I, as a commissioner, also look at the bottom line and say, is our cash position going down? And when it does, then I want higher rates, even if the cost of service looks like it's not, it doesn't go up as much, because I want to maintain those reserves. So, and I don't think $250,000 will impact what we do there, but after a number of years, it does make a difference.
Well, and I also, just for clarity, I heard that it wasn't that you're dividing up $1 million. I heard that we were undercharging by about $1 million. No. Well, that's why it's reflexive listening is so great.
It's $1 million total and we're under collecting by 250,000.
Great.
Roughly.
Nailed it.
230, I think.
Yeah.
223.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Right. So I think all of that is to kind of underline what's already been mentioned about this deeper dive. I hear this direction going towards the 1 year on the dispersal. But before we make any permanent changes, we still need to hear from the public. So does the commission have any? Yes, please.
Are we looking at both distribution as as a 1 year, or are we just looking at the one? and
You
do they
know,
Go in combination.
I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Phillips, but I think the rates actually don't have an end date. They just, we look at them every 2 years. So
Yeah, we could, or.
we could come
or
back, yeah, we could come back in 3 months. It
I
it
see.
doesn't say in the resolution or the rate, this is only, it'll be in effect until we
So
change
this is
it.
For the rate, not necessarily for the customer. You're just showing what the distribution would be for these two customers, but we're
Right,
talking about
and there's-
in general, the 4%.
Yeah, there's,
Are only industrial customers. in
Just
these
those
contracts,
two.
right?
yeah, and mechanically, there's two things we're doing. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. We're setting the rate period high water mark, and that will stay for the 2-year rate period.
For the 2-year rate.
Right.
Okay.
And that's sort of a function of our BPA contract.
Correct.
It's the
Okay.
BPA rate period, we need to be clear.
The
We don't,
BPA,
have- we don't
We
have,
we can't. do
we don't,
anything.
we don't control that.
we don't. control
Right.
that.
Yeah,
got
that's
that.
actually sort of a pass through itself, right?
Okay.
It's really the distribution charge that we're really have discretion.
Yes,
And we could come back in 6 months
correct.
if we wanted to.
We typically align it with our electric cost of service schedule analysis,
But if you want to,
because that's when the
right.
consultant looks at
if
it.
you tell us
So we
you'd
can
like,
do it.
and we could reflect that in the minutes, that you wanted like to revisit this again in a year, certainly we can revisit it here.
So what I generally heard from the commission is, yes, an interest in revisiting that particular item in a year. With education happening in advance of the year, so that we're not coming to a point where we're making a decision, where we're not reshuffling the cards without having educated ourselves more thoroughly to understand. the
So I
complexities.
think what would be good for the commission, because I think Kathy kind of hit a little bit on it, is we probably need to do, like you said, some education, but specifically on our contracts for
Yes,
industrial
yes,
customers.
yes, yes.
Because they are very complicated.
It was very.
And so there's a lot of little nuances and pieces in there. You know, it's the high water mark, it's how we do depreciation. There's a whole schedule of maintenance for all the equipment. It's very complicated and it took a lot of time.
As I recall, carefully negotiated.
Yes, it was significant.
Yes, okay, and part of that, in addition to educating us, is maybe you give a heads up to the customers. That we, that we're looking at this, that we notice this and we're looking at this, so that they don't. They don't get surprised,
Yes,
and I'd like to look at Air Liquide too.
okay.
Just because there's some questions that came up and we have to look at it.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, we're going to take questions from members not of the commission. If anybody has questions for staff this time. So do we have anybody on Zoom or on the phone at this time?
We do not.
In that case, I am going to close the public hearing. Oh.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we might first, I think Ms. Phillips intended to offer
Oh,
pages
final comments.
86 through 103 into the hearing record. And I'm sure you'll be accepting those.
I accept those.
It's
yeah.
very nice.
And any additional staff comments?
Oh, you know what? The other thing we were going to ask Ms. Phillips was, so based on your opinion, the rate established both for Air Liquide and Cascade Steel that will provide adequate receipts for maintenance and operation of the system and the maintenance and adequate reserves for contingencies and for contemplated additions, improvements, and extensions to the system under the relevant power sales agreement. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that,
I may close the hearing.
you may.
Hearing is closed. Any additional deliberations among commissioners? Mr. Justice, would you please read the?
Right, and we have two resolutions, one relating to Cascade Steel. This is resolution number 2023-17. Resolution adopting components of power costs, electrical rates, charges, and fees for Cascade Rolling Mills Incorporated in conjunction with a power sales agreement executed between the city of Bentonville acting by and through its Water Light Commission and Cascade. That's resolution 2023-17.
I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a
I'll
second,
second.
I have a motion from Chair Tankersley and a second from Commissioner Christensen, and I would ask the clerk to poll the commission.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted unanimously, and we'll now go to the second resolution.
Thank you. We have resolution number 2023-18, a resolution adopting components of power costs, electrical rates, charges and fees for Airgas USA in conjunction with a power sales agreement executed between the city of McMinnville, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission and Airgas as 2023-18.
Do I have a motion to approve? I would now
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Tate and a second from Commissioner Christensen. I'd ask the clerk to poll the commission.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted unanimously. Thank you. I will now open our next public hearing. This is on the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, also known as PURPA standards. Number 20, demand response, and 21, electric vehicle charging programs. And again, Power Resource Manager Jamie Phillips will begin the hearing with staff presentation.
Thank you. The Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, PURPA for short, was originally passed in 1978 to conserve energy, efficiency, and promote equitable rates for electric utilities, like McMinnville Water and Light. Over the years, there have been 19 standards, most recently 2 more, as resulting from the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. Is that right? I know. Standard 20 to promote demand response programs, and standard 21 to promote electric vehicle charging programs. PURPA has a requirement that non-regulated utilities shall consider each standard and make a determination concerning whether or not it's appropriate to implement each standard and carry out the purposes of this title. Nothing prohibits a regulatory body from making a determination that the standard is not appropriate to implement. The determination must be made in writing by November 15th, 2023. So I'll share with you a little bit about each standard and how they apply to McMinnville currently. The demand response and demand flexibility standard for consideration says that each electric utility shall promote the use of demand response and demand flexibility practices by commercial, residential, industrial customers to reduce electricity consumption during periods of unusually high demand, and to consider establishing rate mechanisms allowing electric utility to timely recover the costs of promoting demand response and demand flexibility practices in accordance with the previous paragraph. So currently, McMinnville Water and Light's metering and communication capabilities limit our ability to offer rate structures and send time-based price signals to promote these practices for residential and general service customers. It is something that staff continually evaluates and discusses, reviews technology and making infrastructure decisions that consider these opportunities and provide for the advancement of this technology while balancing the costs and the benefit to the utility and our customers. We do offer a variety of incentives and programs to educate customers on energy efficiency via our conservation program, which in turn promotes reductions in energy consumption. We are currently also conducting an integrated resource planning process, which will include evaluating the potential of demand side resources in the future and assessing the costs for those programs. Regarding Standard 21, electric vehicle charging programs, the standard is to consider measures to promote greater electrification of the transportation sector, including the establishment of rates that promote affordable and equitable electric vehicle charging options for residential, commercial, and public electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Improve the customer experience associated with electric vehicle charging, including by reducing charging times for light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. Accelerate third-party investment in electric vehicle charging for light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles, and appropriately recover the marginal costs of delivering electricity to electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging infrastructure. McMinnville Water and Light currently does not offer specific measures or programs that promote transportation electrification. We recognize the implementation of this standard will require establishing priorities and direction that consider a variety of objectives. Consideration should be given to customer needs and preferences, community partnerships, prudent infrastructure investments, equitable rate treatment, and appropriate recovery of costs, among many other things, I'm sure. McMinnville Water and Light understands that the fast evolving and somewhat uncertain nature of the transportation electrification sector, and plan to continually evaluate options and gather data to inform appropriate decisions that promote greater electrification of the transportation sector. Pause for questions.
Any questions at this time?
I'll let somebody else go first again.
How does this, how would this support or interplay with the grant that the city recently, or technically that MURAC recently received for the installation of 4 electric vehicle charging stations? How would this interplay with that?
I'm not aware of a grant. I don't know
So
what grant you're speaking of.
I think that's a good
haven't-
example of work that's happening outside of this enterprise. I know there's other conversations with other organizations that want to invest in or look at electrification. And so I think when you said partnership, that was the thing that is it that this organization leads that effort or convenes conversations around it or supports grant opportunities? You know, I'm wondering if that's what you mean by partnership as opposed to we're going to buy a bunch and install them. I'm wondering if there's sort of that and kind of a different way of thinking about electrification, particularly as you mentioned around the risk.
Sure. Yeah, and that is something that we realize is part of the bigger conversation is evaluating those opportunities and those partnerships and things that haven't necessarily been fully explored at this point. But it's
So,
something.
Mayor, with that grant, would the MURAC committee be coming to Water and Light about how to use that?
Our general manager has been attending
Oh,
the MURAC meetings
you.
as well, so that.
So I have not had any conversations about where it's at right now, other
I
than.
think it got,
Did it get
the
approved?
conversation, I don't believe so. It got moved to the next
Okay,
MURAC.
that's right, because something happened. It was supposed to be last time and then it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen. And I've asked to be
Okay.
notified when it's coming back
Okay,
to
good.
MURAC so that, because I want to make sure that we're there.
So the question really becomes, how do you charge the rate? What's the rate gonna look like? Is it just gonna be behind the meter that's already existing? So there's a lot of questions about how that's gonna interplay, because remember when Jamie talked about priorities. So because we only have X amount of energy. See, I think people forget that. Where does our power come from today? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from hydropower. We have X amount of water. So do you use that energy for homes or do you use it for cars? And if we decide to use it for everything, it's going to drive rates for everybody up.
Are homes being built with EV stations in the
Not
system?
EV stations in it, they're plugs.
The plugs, okay.
You plug in, so, because you don't know who's gonna buy what kind of vehicle. So, and so so the driver is, okay, if a customer says, I'm gonna put an EV charger in my home, but doesn't tell us that, now does that create other issues for us? And so that's when we talk about partnerships, what we need to know is where those things are going. Because that's also not just the power, it's also the infrastructure, all the way from the substations to the home and what's going to be installed. So this is a much bigger conversation than just the charger, putting a charger someplace.
Yes.
It's how does it impact the entire electric grid, not just water and lights grid, but BPA as well.
Yes, I guess my question is how does if tonight we're saying that, yes, we'd like to essentially initiate having some sort of standards around electric vehicle charging or some sort of program, but we want to have some definition, which I mean, personally, I think we should. I mean, I wish we already did so that we had those answers to say this is, but what I understand we're doing tonight is to start identifying that so that we can put programs in place. And I think my question is maybe more related, maybe it's a little broad, because if we're just starting a program, it's not going to have any immediate effect. So I guess the kind of broad question is, how would we see this interplaying with those types of programs? And maybe it's just too early to really tell.
So the question would be, okay, so if the EVs drive load growth, who pays for the higher power costs? Is it the
Once
EV?
we get out of tier one.
Which it won't take us very much to get out of tier one. And so is it get spread among everybody? Or do you have a separate EV charging rate? This is all the questions that have to be answered. Have to be
Well,
thought.
I think, sorry, I just was gonna say, I also think that the EV conversation seems to just go right back to the first conversation, the item 20, to talk about, whether you start looking at
I mean,
time of day use and other incentives to have people use electricity more constructively or,
well,
better for everybody.
So remember, what happens is you're not conserving, or you're not reducing energy use. What you're doing is you're taking the daily peak like this, and you're taking the high and putting it in the valley to spread it to a flat number. So energy use is still going to go up.
Mhm.
Because
It's going to be more consistent.
it's what you do with the time you use is you make it so that you don't have transmission constraints on the transmission system. But you're still going to use more energy because you're physically doing more things with electricity.
But if everyone does the demand response thing.
It doesn't matter.
Well, but Bonneville, they don't produce 100% all the time, right? I mean, Bonneville will have, they don't need to add capacity when they might otherwise have to, right? Like if you did demand response, then maybe you could use capacity from the evenings, although I understand
Right,
wind and solar are a problem.
But you're still using the same water. It's
Right.
just when you use it.
But it might avoid spilling some, right?
That would, typically be in the spring.
Yeah.
But more than likely, what you're gonna happen is you're gonna have more tier 2 resources, which are gonna be more costly for the load growth, because you're gonna have the EVs will drive load growth. And then the question then becomes to the commission, how do you spread those costs?
Yeah, I just point out we're considering the purpose standards, and the purpose standards are generally, I've had this discussion with Ms. Phillips about this. They're generally the federal government telling us as local utilities, you need to consider this. And so they're consideration standards. We're saying, yes, we are going to consider this if we adopt the standard. We will be considering these factors in our rate calculations. And rule or standard 20 and 21 don't exist in a vacuum. In fact, there's 19 standards before that. And the very first standard from 1978 is cost of service, being that rates charged by electric utility for providing electric service to each class of electric customers shall be designed to the maximum extent practicable to reflect cost of providing electric service to such class. So, I mean, yeah, so I mean, but those are the federal government telling us, please, and we're agreeing to consider those things. They're not, mandates in the sort of mandate.
So that's what concerns me, if we can move on from the, okay.
Yeah.
When we look at the determination, it says that we will implement the standard. Now, does that just mean consider it or actually do it?
It's considering it.
So we just look at it? Okay. then
We
we're
should
sure
be.
of that, because
Yeah.
because we said evaluate such practices as metering and communications evolve, subject to the practices appropriate covering margin of cost, but what I'm concerned is I don't want to have promised to do something that we can't do, or that doesn't make sense for our customers for us to do financially. So we're positive that by doing this, we won't be promising to do demand metering for residentials. Because the standard that we're implementing is just, we have to talk about it.
That's
I'm sure
correct.
Right.
Yes.
I understand. That's the way I understand it. Yes, that's correct.
And the other part of this is, as we go through the process with our IRP, this is gonna help, that's gonna help this process as well, because as time moves on and we're doing more with our meters, the ability to change our meters is becoming easier, because it's just essentially taking the meter and changing it, and putting a key, what they call a key, where you can change the program of the meter. So these are kind of why we're trying to move in a certain direction with the ERP meters, going from just a manual read to an ERP meter, and then you would go from the next step from an ERP meter, you would go to an AMI system where it's two-way communications, and taking those steps so that we get there. It's not going to be overnight, but it's always progressing to that point.
So when I look at footnote, footnote 10 of the staff report, it looks to me like if we adopt this, we are promising to give customers prices, the information about prices, purchases, and other time-based prices in the wholesale market, time-based prices. So what I'm concerned about is that there are going to be a bunch of little things in here that we're going to commit ourselves to doing. So I'm wondering if we should say that we will, to the extent we're able to do it now, we're doing it now, we will continue, but then use that, does it make sense financially? Condition.
And footnote 10 refers specifically to standard 19, smart grid information, just for clarification.
Yeah.
That's 19, that's something we've already promised.
Yeah, the commission made a determination not to implement standard 19
Oh.
in 2009.
Oh, okay, good. So we don't, But is there something like that in 20 or 21? See, what I'm nervous about is that we not commit ourselves, I mean, I'm certainly happy to commit ourselves to look at this and to
Right.
implement it, you know, as it becomes appropriate, but I want us to decide that.
Mhm.
And I want to do this.
But
you know,
isn't that what 20 does? It's pending commission action so that.
No, but I mean, I haven't studied it, and so I want to be sure that staff is understands.
Yeah, we've looked at it. I mean, I've had these questions with Ms. Phillips about this. Are we committing ourselves to tomorrow putting in demand response meters? And I think the answer is no. Because as I've indicated, we also, none of these standards, that none of them operate in a vacuum. But for example, and we did look at smart grid information technology and back in 2009, and that's our current, I think it says it's summarized there from Commission Resolution 2009-16. That's what the commission did back in 2009. The commission certainly could revisit any of these standards at any point in time. But I don't think the standards are by themselves designed to mandate specific action. They're designed to tell us we need to be considering these things and talking about them and studying them.
Well, but 19, the quoted language in that footnote, 19 said we had to do certain things. In footnote 10.
Right, and we didn't, but in.
No, I know we didn't,
right,
but you're
right.
saying that these standards are all that we're just having to consider them, and
Right, you're saying that this 19 was more directive.
yeah, and I don't know whether 20 and 21 are.
I didn't read them as being directive, but
So footnote 10 is the original language.
footnote 10 relates to
To-
it relates
I-
to standard 19, not to standard 20 or 21. So tonight
Right.
we're here.
Right,
Yeah.
but what we're reading in footnote 10 is the original language. And
Right.
what we're reading in number
Yes.
19 is the action by the commission.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, are we seeing the full content of 20 and 21? There's no additional language that was.
It's straight from the IJA, yeah. Full language is included in the memo.
So just from my perspective, I'm comfortable with the language because I don't think it commits the enterprise to anything other than consideration and thoughtful exploration of these two items. And I think as a utility, we need to be ahead of it. So by putting it on our agenda, if you will, through this process, I think it's important. And I think I even think sort of the smart grid might be something to revisit, but I think technology is changing at a pace that we don't know what's, what the next 5 years will look like and how that. So if we're not putting these items on our radar, I
Right.
think that we're not being good stewards to the community.
And go back to your point about smart grid, we actually met with a vendor a couple of weeks ago to look at AMI. So keeping ourselves, what's going on and what's happening in the industry, because we want to look at when the timing is right.
Right.
And so, our first goal is to get our system to a spot where it's what's called an AMR system.
Mhm.
And the AMI system can read the AMR system, so we're not losing anything, or we're not having to backtrack and replace things. We can keep moving forward.
And what I appreciate the way you lay that out is, we know this change does not occur overnight, right? It has to be thoughtful, and every step we take should lead to the next step, right?
Exactly.
It's eat the moose one bite at a time.
Right.
It's chocolate mousse, by the way.
I thought it was an elephant.
I've heard elephant, but I say moose. So I think, to me, these two lay that out for us and give us
Right.
support that continued thought process.
And the other thing that we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to update our customer policies.
Right,
Because
Right.
that's a whole nother piece of this, is because we need to know what people are doing in their homes, because that will impact our entire infrastructure. And so we're gonna have to have things in there as well to do that, so that they keep us informed of what they're doing.
Yeah, and I have a question, you, 21D says appropriately recover the marginal costs of delivering electricity to electric vehicles. But I would, perhaps I misunderstood, but your characterization made it seem like it would put a tremendous demand that might push us into tier 2 rather quickly, which doesn't, for me, align with the word marginal cost that's included in here.
Well, the marginal cost would be the difference between, I think, this is me, but Jamie, can tier 1 and tier 2. Because tier 1 is what, $35 a megawatt right now, or 35 cents, that's 0.35 cents. Tier 2 is $62 a megawatt. So to me, it's the difference between the 35 and the 62 is the marginal cost. That's the increase. So you're looking at,
I'm just interpreting the word marginal
yeah,
in a
Yeah.
diminishing way, and it's not
There's-
intended that way. I
there's
see.
economics.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Yeah,
just,
and-
I'm reading it wrong.
and so that's gonna be a decision for the commission. At some point, is the commission gonna say, okay, do we treat people, EVs physically different because they are driving our increased costs, or do you spread those costs among the rate class? Or do you have a separate rate class?
So that's I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
No, you were,
Just-
go
and I-
ahead, Tom.
I just,
So,
she
I
knows.
mean, so it sounds to me that if that the language here that says, subject to the practices appropriately covering marginal costs, we, by adopting their standard, if that's part of the standard, we are committing it. We've already answered that question, that we're gonna have a charging rate.
but it begins by consider measures, including. And so it's saying there could be these things
But
that
if
you
we,
be
no, but if
considering.
we do it, that's what I'm concerned about. If we do adopt the rule about electric charging, then it has to recover marginal costs.
But it doesn't say how, so that, right? It doesn't say how.
It says appropriately recovering the marginal. So what I'm concerned about is, and I supporting this infrastructure, I really do. But I want the commission to be able to do this correctly, because it's so changing so much. And, so this makes me very nervous that and they talk about that we can determine that we don't have to implement the standard. If the standard doesn't have any requirements other than we talk about it, we're already doing that now. I don't know, there must be requirements in here, I think.
But there's
More
no-
than just talking about it.
Yeah, because this language about appropriately recovering the marginal costs, that's a requirement, right? And that
Well,
answers the
considering-
It
question.
says
Consider
measures.
consider that as a measure.
The commission can make a determination to adopt the standard with certain conditions or under, it can be.
I'm happy to do that. I mean, if the condition is that we consider these things, but that we're not committing ourselves to doing any particular act, I'm happy to do that.
I think
So-
Kathy,
Yeah.
did you have a
Commissioner
question?
Tate? You had your hand
Oh,
up here?
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Tom was just trying to listen to Tom finish his comments, but I just wanted to say, I mean, right now, we know that there's EV vehicles being charged in our community right now, and I believe we've had some counts, right, on how many we think are in the community. So we're already by not having done something, we're already having everyone in the community cover the cost of people charging their electric vehicles. Like we've already done that by not addressing this. So it seems to me that it's something we're going to want to do very
Yeah.
soon. And I do agree that from what I see on this, we're supposed to we agree to be good stewards that we will consider all these things. That's what I think it says to us. And if there isn't any other language, then I'm comfortable with that.
We
Chair?
could,
I think we're not, no one's subsidizing those folks yet.
Yes.
Because there aren't enough of them to get us into tier 2 or to require us to go and change transformers in a neighborhood that has, you know, that like my neighborhood.
Right.
That was designed for what it, you know, what it was a long time ago. But if everybody buys an electric vehicle like my neighbor, we have a plug-in hybrid too, but that's, John tells me that's not a big burden.
But,
Wow, that's something there.
but Kathy is right. I mean, at some point, you know, it's going to be that we're just not there yet because we're still in tier 1.
Right.
When we move to tier 2, that's when it's gonna happen.
So
What if we did this? What if we just eliminated that last? I don't want to say phrase, that's last
D,
section.
Item D.
No, just in the resolution where we resolve and say. Purpose standard 21 to consider measures to promote greater electrification of the transportation sector to the extent it is able to do so as an electric distribution utility, period.
In the
no,
resolution.
because we can do, you know, we can do all sorts of things
Right.
that may not be a good idea. So what I would prefer is that we put some language in that somebody suggested a minute ago that says basically, you know, this is, we are obligating ourselves to consider something, but we're not obligating ourselves to take any specific action other than considering the items. Because we don't really know what will be appropriate.
Right. Yeah, this can change, this can change in very quickly.
And the language doesn't say that. to you.
No, I don't think it does. I really don't think it does. And if it does, based on my prior profession, redundancy doesn't hurt.
So you would prefer it read, consider, but does not obligate measures to promote.
Well, I think we could just say that nothing in this resolution obligates the commission to do anything other than consider these matters. And just clarify it that way. So we use the language that I'm sure it came from purpose or a trade organization, something like that, where the language that they want to see, but then we make it clear what our understanding is, that we're not obligated to do any specific action
On these two items.
on anything under 21 or 20 or 21. Yeah. I mean, frankly, Jody, I don't want to obligate us to do anything other than follow the charter and the law. I don't want to put handcuffs on future commissions as to what they should do, especially in something like this where, you know, there's disagreement on what.
I mean, it feels duplicative to me because I think the language is clear, but if it gives you comfort, I don't have an issue.
So further resolve, nothing in the resolution obligates Water and Light to take any particular action, something of that further resolve.
Other than to consider these matters. You know, because I think it is important that future commissions look at this and consider.
Yeah, and I mean, in reality, there's probably gonna be there could be multiple EV charging rates, because you could have residential and you could have commercial.
And there's also different EV chargers, I read.
Yeah, like level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, yeah.
And this commission or future commissions could go back and revisit all of these and make changes. Okay.
Yes, you could do that. We could go back and change any of the stuff we've done in the past.
But what I don't want to
It feels like
do
we're
is
spending
have
a lot of
somebody.
time on something that's kind of built on wet sand.
But I think, but in this case, I think these are the things, this is something that we're gonna have to spend quite a bit of time on because it has such an impact to our rates.
Yeah, I think we should spend the time, but I don't think we should be in a situation where we've done something that gives the federal government or somebody who has a particular opinion, the ability to say you're not following your resolution.
Okay.
Okay, any additional comments or questions? Anybody in the audience like to provide any commentary? Has anybody joined us on Zoom or on the phone?
No.
Okay, then any final staff comments?
I would like to offer pages 96 to 103 of the packet for the record.
Great, I would like to accept those written materials into the hearing record and close the public hearing. Is there any additional commission deliberation at this time?
Real quickly, I appreciate the work staff has been on this. It's just very complicated and I may be due to it. But when I saw that language, it just got my attention. So thank you for humoring me here.
Would you care to read the resolution?
Sure, we're gonna, it's gonna be resolution number 2023-19, a resolution to implement purpose standard 20 for demand response and demand flexibility and standard 21 for electric vehicle charging programs with the additional resolved statement, be it further resolved, nothing in this resolution obligates Waterline to take any particular action other than consider these standards.
I'd consider a motion to accept the resolution as read.
So moved.
I have a motion from Chair Tankersley and a second from Commissioner Tate. The clerk, please poll the commission.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Tate.
Aye.
And the resolution is adopted unanimously. Trina, is this a good time? Are we doing it? Yes, okay,
Sure.
great. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. There's some food in the hallway if everybody would like to grab a plate and enjoy themselves. We'll be back shortly. Enjoy yourself for 10 minutes. Yeah.